Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Chris with HeavyHeadsRecords.com. I'm here with a great friend of mine, Mikey KUKS. As you can see behind me, behind us, we've got all these awesome characters, figures. What do we call these things?
They're still toys.
They're still toys. So, yeah, Mikey's been a friend of mine for a long time. We used to sing karaoke together way back when I first started DJing.
Yeah.
So he
Or
got
yesterday.
me through. And yesterday, yeah.
whatever.
He's gotten me through some DJ gigs, boring DJ gigs, man. If you ever need somebody to help you sing some Tenacious D,
Your guy.
this is your guy.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm not going to tell you what song. That's not what this channel's about. So anyway, guys, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I've got an interest in what Mikey's doing, but I don't think that I will ever be able to get this deep into this world myself. But that's a great part about having cool friends, is I don't have to, because he's doing it all day, every day. So we're going to talk about just what this life is about, what this community is about, and we're just going to talk all things custom figures. Okay, so one of the obvious questions I think that anybody's going to ask when they come in here and see all these figures behind you, what's going on here, is, and let me just kind of explain first really what's going on. So you're a collector of figures, but then at some point you decided, hey, I want to start, getting in on the custom side, making my own, and doing things, modifying figures and making them look the way you want, etc. So
Sure.
That's what this is about. So, how did you go from being a collector to, essentially saying, I want to design my own toys and paint and do all this stuff?
Well, I guess that started by just me not willing to pay the prices that they wanted for figures that were made. So I see, companies reuse parts all the time, and they can be pretty creative about it. So they would use the same parts to make this other figure, and it would just be colored different or something. But that figure, because of the coloration, it was $100 instead of $15. I wasn't willing to do that, so I took the $15 figure and painted it to be, in my opinion, better than the $100 figure, and that was how it started.
So basically, I'm hearing you're passionate about the hobby. But you don't want to pay full retail prices in the hobby, especially knowing there's a way out.
Sure.
And a different way to do things. I'm the same way when it comes to what I do.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff I want out there, but I'm just not willing to pay certain premiums to get it. So
Sure.
You kind of have to find ways around that to still
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the hobby, be passionate about it. So I can
Absolutely.
completely understand that. So that being said, you got into it. What got you hooked on this hobby?
I would say that the thing that got me hooked initially was this being something that I could share with my dad. My dad's always been a part of the toy world, various lines and stuff. And so as a kid, I was always, kept up to date on what new toys were out. And when I got out, somewhere around that puberty mark, when most guys seem to drop toys and focus on other things, we lost that. And he stayed passionate about it. And so I'd still keep up to an extent. But it wasn't until I got back into it in 2019 where we got that back. But once I did get back in, I eventually started posting on, Facebook and stuff like that. And honestly, it was the positive reinforcement that the community gave me, just the reactions and like, oh man, that looks really good. And, why can't they do, why can't the factory do that? Or even at that time, there were people that were asking me like what I would charge to do it. And I just wasn't comfortable with commission work at that time. I didn't like the idea of it, that whole, the art is a piece of you, you can't sell art, And I've since broken that. but that's what got me into it. That's what kept me into it was, the community, and now the thing that keeps me into it is still the community, but it's specific people now, like being a part of the, some of the toy groups, and the YouTube channels that I'm a part of, and the true friendships that I've been able to make doing custom action figures is, there's real camaraderie. There's a bit of a brotherhood, and that keeps feeding for sure.
Okay. Well, so I heard you mention too the financial aspect of this thing, as well, as far as the commissions and things like that. But then we talked a little bit before we started shooting, and I just want to kind of clarify something that maybe you haven't picked up on, or maybe other people need to realize, is that money is a part of this thing. However, with the commissions, based on what we've said, and I want to know your belief on this, but based on what we talked about, it's still not about the money.
Right.
You've decided that it's okay to have your art sitting in other people's collections.
Yeah.
And it's okay for these people to enjoy the art in exchange for money. Your time's worth something.
Yeah.
So you get paid to have your piece sitting in these collections. And like we talked about before we started shooting, he knows where all these pieces are. So, it's a way to basically let go of your art, but still have some kind of an understanding of where it's at, what it's doing.
Absolutely.
And then it's making somebody else happy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if it was all about the money, he showed me how many commissions he's supposed to do, and he's got on the calendar right now. If it was all about the money, he'd be done with those, because he has a ton.
It's true.
So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
There's always a financial aspect in every hobby.
Yeah.
But typically that financial aspect is only used to continue to fuel the passion, right?
That's essentially that's it. Yeah.
That's where I'm at with my stuff too. So one of the things I've seen you do since you started doing this is, like you said, you've posted a lot of photos, stuff like that, and then you created a YouTube channel, right?
I did.
JMK Custom Works. You guys, after you subscribe to my channel, and you've settled in, go over to hit. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, check out JMK Custom Works. He's got a lot of cool content on there. Really detailed, processes as far as how to paint a head.
Yeah.
How to paint camouflage is something I've seen. Can you name a couple more?
Yeah. It's some like things you don't know about until you're into the hobby, but things like joint prep, which is different than what some people may hear that as, but it's essentially where two surfaces move together that will remove paint. So you have to remove enough material for paint to clear, and it's something that a lot of people don't know how to do it or don't know that they should do it. So I did a quick video on that. Like Chris, you said, the head painting and camouflage, and just how to paint a specific character from Predator or something. Mm-hmm. So it's all just how to's. I've never been one to gatekeep a hobby. If you want to know how to do something, I'll almost certainly tell you how to do it. It's going to be up to you if you're willing to put the time and effort into learning how to do it.
That's the thing about gatekeeping hobbies. Like I find it to be counterproductive too, because look at all this behind you, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's got to come in and be able to do this, and anybody who wants to put in this amount of time, wants to put in this amount of effort, probably deserves to be sitting right here talking to you too.
Right.
So it's not easy to do what you do, and that there's no sense in gatekeeping or whatever. So
right. Yeah.
You can find, what he's saying is, you can find, if you're interested in this hobby, you can kind of get in a little bit deeper and see what it really takes. By checking out that YouTube channel. Sounds like you can go just as deep as you want to go.
Yeah. And
I would say too, Mikey's, real personable, accessible. If you want to shoot him an email or something like that and ask questions to prompt him as far as a video that you might want him to make or something like that, or a question you might have for him that he might just be able to answer real fast.
Sure.
People could do that too. What's that email?
Honestly, the best place to do it would either be Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
Both are JMK Custom Works. So that's where you reach me.
So check him out there. Okay, so I am a big member of the vinyl community, the VHS community, the cassette tape community, all these communities having to do with physical media. I've got my favorite things about being a part of that, and that hobby. So naturally, there's going to be some things that you have favorites about in this hobby. So what are your favorite parts about the custom figure community?
Primarily, it's camaraderie, it's the friendships, the family that I've created, found, whatever you want to say, through painting toys. It's kind of surreal, because this feels like such a childish hobby. Like you're playing with toys,
mm-hmm.
but the bonds that I've created over the last handful of years has been an incredibly unsuspected part. I never anticipated that. I would also say that, the sense of accomplishment I get from, completing a job and doing it well, the pride that comes with that, that's pretty high on my list. And it's probably that way for anybody that does a skilled trade, or anybody that's just takes pride in their work. You feel good when you've completed a job. You did that to the best of your abilities. Maybe it's not the best that's ever been done, but you did it to the best of your abilities, and that's a good feeling. I think a lot of kids are missing that these days.
Absolutely,
that's another subject for another
Absolutely.
time. And then I would also just like the painting aspect of it for me is zenful. It's focusing. It brings me back to something that makes me truly happy. It's just the painting of it. Nobody ever may never see whatever project I'm working on. It may not go very far. It may just go up on this shelf and I'll never talk about it again. But just the painting aspect of it, it focuses me. It brings me back to a zenful spot. Takes some stress away. And in this world, that's a hell of a thing.
Yes, it is. It's valuable. Money can't buy that.
You cannot buy that.
So a question I have, just out of my own curiosity, is what is the longest session you've had in this spot working on a toy? Like you get into it, because I feel like when I've done projects like these, you set yourself up like, I'm going to quit here. But you just keep going because you get into the process and you become almost obsessed with it.
Yeah.
So you don't quit until it's done.
Right.
So when you did that one time, or multiple times, what was the longest you went on a project?
It was over 20 hours of painting. Yeah. That figure is in my father's collection. It was for him. It was just one of those things. I knew what I wanted, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. But once I started, I would see how I could improve something like mid-process, and I would make that change. And it was over 20 hours of painting, and that video can be seen on my YouTube. That's the Lieutenant Falcon video.
Wow.
I recorded 20 hours of footage, and I condensed it way down.
Please go watch that, just for the sake of this man having to do that. And I'm going to go deeper on that one. So 20 hours. What time did you sit down? Did you eat dinner and then just decide, okay, here I go?
It was over the course of a few weeks.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't a 20-hour session.
No.
Okay.
No, it was overall. Yeah, I still have a day job, and it would be coming home, and I'd paint for 4 to 6 hours a night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like sitting here going, like, how would this guy,
no,
do 20 hours?
No, not. Yeah,
I believe you.
Not
could.
Consecutive. I don't know how quality that paint job's going to be at the end of 20 hours. It's going to be pretty sloppy, I think.
The other thing that stuck out to me that's kind of subtle is the artistry behind it. The fact that you said that no matter who sees this, no matter where it winds up, if it winds up on a shelf, whatever, that reflects true artistry to me.
Sure.
Because art is about doing the art. The art is what makes the artist happy. Sharing the art, I believe, is secondary to that.
Certainly.
Artists want people to like their work.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah, we crave that for sure.
But that's not a guarantee as an artist. And if you're a true artist, the guarantee is probably that some people aren't going to like your work. Some people aren't going to like you. Yep. So, but I did pick up on that you do approach this as an art form. This isn't just a money-making hobby. This isn't. Right. This is what you really enjoy. This is what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the same way for a lot of other people.
Sure.
You mentioned how you get that sense of accomplishment from making a piece. You showed me a piece off camera specifically that happened with. And I was going to see if you would kind of explain that. It's right there.
Yeah.
Kind of explain that scenario and explain what happened, and we'll check out this piece because it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean it's so the character was a Hasbro design, and it was like people in the community refer to it as the dark years.
Okay.
So it was when they weren't really popular. They'd refocused, and they were no longer selling to the same kids that they were in 1982. This was 20 years later.
Sure.
So when you're doing the custom figures, you're wanting to do something that's either A, not done yet, or B, done better.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm looking for projects, when I'm trying to get inspired on what project to do, I'm spending time just going through, various sources looking for that spark. Like, that's the character I want to do. So that happened with this one. His name is Guillotine. And with Guillotine, I was trying to figure out like what would be a good, I call it a recipe, like what pieces and parts from each figure I'm going to use. And so that's yet another database. So, I mean, if you think about the customizing aspect, you're spending hours just in the research stage, just going through, looking at, old comic books or old toys, trying to get the inspiration, and then trying to create the build. And that's some time consuming stuff, or can be. And then you move next to see if those parts even work together. And so with Guillotine, that was pretty easy. He's not a lot of parts, but it's more of a clever use of the parts that are available. And to me, that's one of those challenges that I like to accomplish. Like, that's one of the greatest things. Like, I did this with parts available.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's some sculpting involved, and that's another, another skill altogether.
So I'm just sitting here thinking, how many people do I know who could just put something like this together out of just stuff they got sitting around the house? Come on.
Like the little brother from Better Off Dead, when he creates the spaceship out of a toaster and stuff.
We got a little He-Man over here. We're going to take some G.I. Joe. We're going to put it together. Like, it's just crazy.
Crazy glue.
Very cool, though. This is why I want to show people this world.
Yeah.
We're going to get a little bit deeper into Mikey's favorite pieces that he's done. He doesn't have all of his favorite pieces on him because they're in other collections, but we're going to go with what he's got on hand. And then we're going to also show you just how far this hobby can go, which I was unaware just how far you could take this as an independent person, but it's pretty far. So I think it's really amazing what you're about to see. But let's start out with your favorites and move on. So,
like you said, like a lot of my favorite pieces are elsewhere. They're in my dad's collection, they're in friends' collections, they're in just any customer's collection. This first one that I'm going to show you is actually going to somebody else's collection, but isn't there yet.
Such a cool piece.
I did this for Assembly Required, which takes place in Des Moines in November. My dad and I go every year.
Can you hold it up? If I'm watching right now, I'm like, what does this thing look like?
So I did the figures and not the diorama. The diorama was made by Paul Knapp, who also has a very good YouTube channel. So this is 3 figures that are pulled from a very specific issue of the G.I. Joe comic book, where they do flashbacks to Vietnam. And this is three of the team, and I just happened to. My buddy Paul sent me this diorama, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect to display these guys. And then one of the community friends said they wanted it, and so they're getting it. But yeah, each one is its own custom, and there's lots of wash and things like that go over the paint to kind of shadow it. Like this is a intricate camo pattern, on the hat. So they all have that kind of touch that brings to the what they call the LRP team, which was long range recon patrol.
Okay.
So that's one of my favorite pieces that I currently have.
Now, how much real quick before we move on? How
Sure.
much time is in that piece?
There's probably 5 or 6 hours each. So yeah, you're looking at 15 to 18 hours.
And then the diorama, you said you got that from somebody else.
Yeah, a buddy made that for me.
Fully put together?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, they sent it just like that.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, that was actually the first diorama I got. He sent me 2, and then Tony made that one specifically for me out of my request. But yeah, the LRP team is one of my favorites. I always liked that comic when I was a kid. And then in November, I actually the guy who drew it, the guy who came up with all the characters, was at Assembly Required. And so I got a picture with him holding them, and I had him sign the specific issue. So it was a pretty awesome.
That's cool.
It's a pretty awesome picture. But yeah, Larry Hama, the guy that designed and drew and came up with a lot of the G.I. Joe figures characters. So this one is called a Cobra Coils Trooper. This is another one of those that was from that what the community calls the dark years. I always liked it. So this is made up of about 6 different figures busted apart in different pieces and stuff. So, and then the helmet, I actually designed the helmet, and then a good friend of mine, Ragin Spoon, did the 3D rendering and printing. So he printed it and then cast it. So those, I don't know if he's got those on his website yet, but raginspoon.com, good source for 118 and 112 pieces.
Everybody knows what that means, right?
Yeah.
112.
Yeah. So that's
hang on, I think I've got a few on.
Yeah, you've got them in your pockets. So that's the action figure scale. People probably remember like the original G.I. Joe, like the 1960s, scaled with Barbie, right? They're about a foot tall. So those are 1/6 scale action figures.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then these that I'm showing you now are 112. The little G.I. Joes and Star Wars guys, those are 118. And then if you go to like model cars, that's 124.
See, I thought you were talking about like part numbers or something.
Yeah.
Let me get a couple 124s.
Yeah, let me get some of them. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the breakdown of that for those not in the know.
So, random question. How much money, like I probably had every cool G.I. Joe. We'll say I had 10 cool, like the best top G.I. Joes.
Mm-hmm.
In great condition. How much money did I lose by pulling them apart and putting firecrackers in between them and blowing them up when I was a kid? How much, if I had all 10 of the top G.I. Joe figures out of the box, they were out of the box, how much money am I looking at that I wasted?
Like if you would have just had them as played with condition instead of blown apart by M80s.
Lightly played with,
yeah.
We'll say, yeah.
Yeah, depending on what those 10 figures were, you would definitely be out a few $1,000s for sure. But I mean, it could go crazier than that. It could be, it could be just a few $100s. Depends on who is doing the evaluating on who was the best.
I'm trying to figure out if the amount of fun I had has kept up with inflation too.
Well,
you know what I mean? Because anybody who's done it, you've done it, I'm sure. Yeah. Anybody who's done it can relate.
Sure.
You find an arm over here, you find a leg over here. It's fun.
Sure.
Fun,
sure.
So.
I had a buddy whose parents were renovating their house, and they were redoing They had done the driveway, and they were redoing the driveway, so they were pulling out the concrete slabs, and there were pieces of G.I. Joe in the old gravel driveway that they found. So probably hitting it with BB guns or running over with their bikes, and It's
a great 4th of July.
People did it.
Gosh. So this next one comes from a movie that a lot of you are probably familiar with. Maybe you just watched it a month or so ago. What do we got?
So this is from the movie Scrooged with Bill Murray. At the beginning of the movie, he's doing the sales pitch for the Christmas special, and it's The Night the Reindeer Died, and it features Lee Majors. And so this is just a painted head. That's all I did for this. It's all I wanted. I found a guy on Etsy that had the old 12-inch action figure, Lee Majors' head scaled down, and it was like one of the first things I wanted to do when I got into painting this scale. So that's kind of one of the fun things about this hobby is with just painting, just doing heads. You can totally change an action figure. Like you could buy that figure right now off of Hasbro Pulse, and then you swap the head out, and now it's no longer Snow Job. Now it's Lee Majors, or you got this guy here. You got a Magnum PI. That's all I was. It was just a painted head.
Please show that to the camera. Look at that. Oh my gosh! Leave that here. We're going to get close.
You order the body from Valaverse and do a head swap. It's one of the easier ways to do customs is just heads. Not that heads are easy. A lot of people hate it.
Mm-hmm. So we've seen a lot of your personal favorites. Now we're going to go into something even deeper. This is where the hobby just goes out of control, in my opinion, but in the best way possible. This is the dream. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like being a part of this hobby and, starting from the bottom and then going this far.
Sure.
Show them what I'm talking about.
Sure. So these are like, you mentioned like what the hobby can become. Mm-hmm. And for somebody that customizes toys, I can't imagine a bigger dream than making your own action figures. And while that's not what I do provide a service to those companies by doing their paint masters, which is basically like the blueprint that you send to the factory so they know exactly how to paint something.
Right. That's really cool. I mean,
it is cool. I absolutely love doing it. It's a big feather in my cap. Like it's a personal pride thing. But the first line I got to do that with was actually on my dad's the line that he has built, which is call sign longbow. And this year we got the first figure from that Kickstarter, and it's there's 10 more figures to come, but Ghost is the first one that we got in hand. So this is the first time that I got to see not only the fruits of my labor of the paint master, factory painted exactly like I did, but also the fruits of the labor of my dad, his partner Troy. They've put so much work into this, just creating this figure. Mm-hmm. Every detail they combed over meticulously, and it shows. It shows if you're into vintage, G.I. Joes, this thing sells it. It's weird things like the thickness of the cardstock. Like handle that. Right. Tell me that doesn't remind you of getting one.
Oh, it totally does. I mean, that's why I'm sitting here looking at it. It's like it's got the blister packaging. We'll do close-ups too.
Yeah, it's got the rattle. It's the weird little senses. But
if and I'm older, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not hip to all the toys in the stores. But
sure,
if I saw this, in Walmart, wherever right now, I would not be able to differentiate it from anything else that's going on.
Sure.
I mean, this is amazing. And then the back too. I don't remember if this is exactly how GI Joe's looked, but I want to say that it was similar.
It's super close. Yeah.
And of course, you can't probably do it exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to copy them, but you do want to obviously show the homage, the reason that they wanted to do this.
Just how, and that's what I was saying. How cool to go from, like I said, the bottom of the hobby, from the very beginning all the way to where you produce your own piece and blister packaging with paint masters and stuff. It's very akin to a musician, who writes their own music, records an album, puts it on vinyl.
Yeah.
Gets their masters back, gets their first record on vinyl in the packaging. It's the same thing in this industry, I think.
Yeah, it is.
And man, to be able to accomplish that is God, it must be such a great feeling. I've never done it, so
right.
Yeah,
it's pretty intense. Just seeing it from my perspective, it's been really, really rewarding to see the fruits of the labor.
And one other thing I'll say about that too is like one of my favorite parts about things like this is this represents someone's dream, right?
Very much so.
So once something like this exists in the world, it can't be taken away.
Right. Yep.
So this person's dream exists now in reality somewhere for other people to enjoy. They may not even know it.
Right.
Which is so cool. So I really love seeing stuff like this come about. I hope they continue to do it. You said they're going to do it. So.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm going to be on that list too, I'm sure. So.
Yeah. It's really cool. I mean, it's like I said, it's the fruits of the labor, but they've done it it's like a love letter to the original figures.
Absolutely.
And even going to they have their own comic book that tells the story. So it's just like GI Joe was for all those kids of those days, the 80s and 90s. Like you're reading along and you're like, man, I want that action figure.
Right.
And then the next wave of Longbow, there's that action figure.
Well, to me, what it is it's a bunch of kids growing up, becoming adults, and saying, now all those dreams I had when I was a kid, I can make a reality because I have the means and the skills. Yeah. So I see that 100%. It's awesome.
It's literally the end of the kid chasing his dream. Like this is the point. Like this is the dream, and you got it. Like it's really cool. It's really rewarding. Like I said, just from my perspective, like this isn't my toy line. I don't have anything invested in this, but being a part of it is incredible.
Just to see it happen, take shape, and come to life.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the Longbow. That was the first one that I got to be a paint master for, and now all of their stuff goes through me to paint, and it's a very rewarding and unique opportunity that I would have never expected that out of painting toys for it to be a profession.
Well, I'll continue to insert things. One of my favorite sayings is that you can't take the off-ramp if you're not already on the highway.
Sure.
Right? So if you're following your passions, you're following your dreams, and doing a good job and really giving it your all, opportunities kind of present themselves, do they not?
Yeah.
If people, see what you're doing, they know you're passionate about it, they know that you're going to be doing it no matter what. There's a respect level for that, and a lot of times people will reach out to people like that if they're just doing their thing. If you see quality in someone else, you want to work with them. I do.
Yep.
Especially if they're a good dude.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially when it's your brand. This is your project. You want people who are passionate about the project and about their work, because if you're passionate about yours, they're passionate about theirs. You're just going to keep building.
Right.
Like it's all going to be steps up to that master, that main goal, the primary objective. Like everybody is going to be building each other up.
Yep.
Because everybody wants to succeed, because everybody takes pride in their work.
Sure.
And something we like to say, in the action figure community is fans do the best work. So you still have Hasbro, and you still have Mattel, and all those old companies that we all grew up with. They're all still doing stuff, but there's no heart in it anymore.
Right.
It's just consumerism. It's just buy what people will pay for, and if they won't pay for it, make them feel bad about it, so they'll pay for it. And so I have a few more examples of that mentality.
Yeah, let's run through that.
And so this is a company called Skeletron, and you'll notice this looks remarkably similar to this because this was the first. See here, Grindstone. See right there, Grindstone Toys. That is John and Troy's company.
Okay.
So this figure was the first Grindstone figure, and shares a lot of the parts with Ghost. So this is not something that this company does a lot, but they're kind of friends. They help each other out. It's another cool thing to see in the community is content creators and toy makers working together, helping each other out. So big shout out to Ben and Mark and Corey and the other Mark. Like, this Skeletron stuff is incredibly cool. People have started getting the main point of that project was a thing called the Robo Skull, and you can kind of see the box of it here. Those have started to be delivered, and for the first toy a company makes is pretty impressive. But they also did multiple scales, and they did multiple styles of figures. So that's an O-ring style, just like our old G.I. Joes. You take the screw out of the back, it's got that big O-ring, right? That's how those figures are made. This figure is what we call modern construction. There's no O-rings. It's all joints and pins, and it's pretty detailed. I mean, it's nice. So this was also part of their Kickstarter. So they had the one O-ring figure. They had, I think, 4 modern construction 4-inch action figures. And then they also did 6-inch action figures, which is the only thing that hasn't been delivered yet. The work they're putting into it is incredible. The attention to detail is amazing. The passion is there. It's amazing. They're a fantastic company, great guys. And I will also mention that Longbow as well as Skeletron are still available for pre-order, and for Skeletron you can still order from their website, but it's skeletron.com and cslongbow.com for each of those. So if you're interested in, even if you're just interested in just reading about the product, or for Longbow, you can read the first issue of the comic book on their website. So the only thing we haven't gotten from Skeletron is the 6-inch action figures. I'm just highly anticipating those this year. I think they're going to be great, because if they're anything like those figures, I think they're going to be phenomenal. But like I said, the fans doing the best work, and then there's Delta 17, which is another classic O-ring style figure. These guys are paying attention to details. They're creating new characters. They've got an awesome story behind them, quality stuff. But you can see, like, they didn't go quite as nostalgia bound as Longbow.
Right.
Like, they wanted the feel of the old figure. Like this one, they just wanted the construction, but it's very modern packaging. The accessories are modern. Really, really cool stuff with them.
I want to say too, the detail on these is just insane.
Crazy, right?
Like when you look at them real close up, I mean, it's the detail's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and like this one, that silver space guy, that's a Geyer Wolf, and what's really, really cool about that figure is it's a tribute to a guy that was a big part of the G.I. Joe community. His name was Gary Head. They called him Gary Goggles.
Okay.
And a handful of years ago, he passed. And Hasbro created a figure for him through the fans, and then the fans also created a figure for him. So he's been able to live on with the G.I. Joe community in a truly beautiful way.
That is very cool.
It's really cool, and Ben knew him and wanted to immortalize him one step further. So it's just kind of a cool story behind that specific figure. That's not just some random head. That is Gary to a T. But yeah, and then one more I've got here. The guy that, other than my father, who was the most influential in me becoming a customizer, was a guy named Matt LaCroix. And Matt LaCroix has his own toy line called Strike Force Alpha. Him and Jason Shiremeyer have put so much time, energy, passion into creating this toy line. It's a very cool toy line. There's some hints of like 1960s G.I. Joe lore in it. You know, there's something that kind of looks like a Bullet Man and things like that. So this is another company that's driven by passion, fans really caring about what they do. Very, very cool. And they come apart very similar to the old O-ring figures, but it's not an O-ring. It's a newer system, but it still assembles the same basically. But really cool stuff. You can check them out on their website. Yeah, so I just wanted to show some of this fans doing the best work and what that means. Like, we say it a lot in the community, but this is what it means. Like, you're not going to find passion on the toy aisle at Target. You're just going to find toys. They're not going to have any meaning. Nobody put their life savings, into having the 200th Wolverine figure on the shelf. Like, Hasbro's, kind of cruise control, as most corporations are. Right. They get the report from their bean counters, and the bean counters rule the roost. But with these guys, it's a handful of people running a company. Most of them still have day jobs. Most of them are still, family men and married, and this is their spare time, and it's everything. Yeah, and it's so cool. It's so cool.
That's why, like I said, that's why I find so much value in it, because like I said, once these things are created, they're here. Mm-hmm. They happen. Yep. And it's extraordinary for an ordinary person, I believe, to be able to go from an idea in their mind to something like this. Right. Yeah. Hasbro can do it. They've been doing it for, since I was a kid, since before I was a kid, whatever. But, for me or you to be able to do it, and to do it at this level, to make it look as good or better than Hasbro, right? That's saying something.
It is, and it's cool because we give a lot of flack to the social media age, right? It's full of headaches. It's full of, you and I talked about it earlier today about it just being a battle of consumerism. Sure. Who has the most stuff? And I say that in a room full of toys. But this couldn't have been done in any point in history. This wouldn't have been able to happen. I know that because I watched my dad do it for decades, trying to get a toy line off the ground. It just wasn't happening. But now, and companies do abuse that. Companies have abused Kickstarter. They've abused, they take your money and they run. Like, it's a real risk because they don't owe you anything. You're donating that, right? With the kind of alluding to you getting something in return. But companies take advantage of that. But for every one of those, there's 10 projects, 20 projects where it's passion. Yeah. These guys are not going to take advantage of you because those guys have probably been taken advantage of. Sure. Those guys have probably been on those losing. In fact, I know these guys have. Absolutely. I remember that happening, and it's terrible because that takes away from the community. And like any community, right? The place you live, right? Mm-hmm. Your block, right? There's gonna be some less than ideal people that do less than ideal things. You can't do anything about it. But if 20 of those people are good people and you can trust them to, hey, keep an eye on my house while I leave for the weekend, right? Then that outweighs that one or two not so good ones. You know what I mean?
Well, and I just had the thought, I may have had it before, but if you've got, these people that aren't giving to the industry, they're negatives in the industry, whatever,
Yeah.
you almost need those people so you can contrast against them to see who you don't want to be around.
That's true.
So you can definitely see what example you don't want to follow.
True.
So in a way, you do need a variety so you can kind of pick and choose. I mean, we'd love for it to be perfect.
Sure.
But that's not reality. So
that's an ideal.
you can pick and choose who you want to be around and who you want to associate with. And the stuff that this stuff right here doesn't happen from people being selfish and trying to put each other down and stuff like that.
No.
I mean, I think it happens from a collaborative effort where everybody's on the same page. They love what they're doing. They want to see this come to life.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't think it can happen any other way. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like anything else, just life in general, without the negatives, without the lows, are you going to appreciate the highs?
Right.
Are you going to appreciate the good stuff? If you can't put it into perspective, this could be a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's something I think we just struggle with as humans, as people, is just being appreciative, and focusing on the good and not, how nice the neighbor's car is. How come I don't have a car that nice? Yeah, but what do you got? You got a family that loves you.
Yeah.
You got a hobby that fuels your passion. You're doing okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's really all the stuff aside. It's really what makes you, to me, what makes you happy in the present moment. What are you doing that's fulfilling you right now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how can you move your life if you're not happy?
Right.
How can you move your life in that direction? What is going to fulfill you? How can you start spending 2 hours a night painting figures?
Right.
How can you make that 4 hours a night?
Mm-hmm.
How can you get so successful you quit your job?
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yep.
So there's a pathway for everybody, I think, and it's out there if they want it, I guess.
Sure.
So.
Sure. It's achievable.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about your YouTube channel. We've talked about, I think, the podcast that you and your dad have started.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just go ahead and go back over that real quick. It's right behind me, right there. Couple of KUKS.
Couple of KUKS.
Couple of KUKS. So check that one out too. And then let's go ahead and let's broaden that horizon for those people who are interested. What are your other, besides yours? We're going to keep those at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 3 more channels, maybe more, that people could check out on top of your stuff.
Okay. Well, one thing we haven't talked about is my new podcast that I started on Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Central Time, and that's called Figure It Out. And that's me and 2 of my buddies, and I would direct you to their YouTube channels, Zakanen and Just Jeff. Each week we do it on one of our shows, so we kind of rotate. So it started on my channel, it went to Zakanen's, and then it went to Just Jeff's, and that's how we do it. Each week, one of us hosts the new episode. So if you like toy content, both of those guys are good, interesting pages to follow. But ones that I watch the most. I still watch a lot of my friend. It's Chad. He was the guy that gave me my first YouTube spot. He's a retired Army vet, and so he has an interesting perspective into GI Joe. I mean, whereas GI Joe did not make me want to join the military. GI Joe made him join the military. That's what he wanted to be. A real American hero. Wow. And so him having the legitimate military background to kind of explain things is an interesting follow. So if you're into that kind of stuff, he also dives really deep into the history of G.I. Joe. And him and I have done several shows with some of the original creators, and we've talked about how stuff got developed and stuff that didn't get made, and we've done shows with Dan Klingensmith, who did a series of books that was the creating of G.I. Joe, and it was just art of everything made and not. So if you like that kind of stuff, It's Chad. It's definitely a good follow. I do some content with Yojo Jerk and Toy Gains. Both of those are channels that I really, really enjoy. They both do a lot of action figure reviews, as well as their joint shows on Monday and Thursday nights. I really enjoy their content. They're total goofballs, and they're very lovable for it.
So lots of really good,
Yeah,
content out there for this community.
absolutely. I mean, and it really just depends on the specifics of what you're into, how deep you go into it. If you're into just vintage stuff, there's lots of guys that do that. There's lots of guys that do new toys and toy news. There's tons and tons of channels out there, and I'm happy to be a part of a good handful of them. It's really good content creators.
Your channel is really, really cool. I just love nerding out and watching you just do your thing from start to finish.
Yeah.
I can definitely respect it. I would love to try it.
Yeah.
And I will sometime. I don't know when, but I'd love to try it. Can we do one of me sometime?
Yeah.
We could.
Yeah.
I will pay you for a custom of me. If you help me design it, help me paint it,
Yeah.
make me look way more muscular and cool,
Jacked.
and we got to keep the mullet.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
my only requirements. How are you going to fashion a mullet on one of these things?
Right. Yeah.
But challenges. You
That's
like
right.
challenges.
That's right.
So that's okay.
That's
we'll
right.
do it.
We'll find something.
Look out for that.
And I would say my real favorite right now is one that I did not see, couldn't have predicted, but the channel is Legend Series, and Tony and I have become really good friends over the past a handful of months. Really, it really hasn't been that long, but I love his content. He does a lot of Dio stuff. So like this brick wall that you see back here is an alleyway diorama that he did for me. He does great work. He does really fun content, and his members only streams are so much fun. Like he does he does a lot of video editing and stuff professionally, and so he'll do in like Tuesdays he'll do like a freshly baked props, and he'll be working on something like this while he gets baked. and I find it incredibly entertaining. And then
do you think that's performance enhancing for him or no?
Yeah, I think for him, I know for him part of it is true pain management. But I also know that a part of it is a focus thing.
Yeah.
And even when that was part of my life, that was definitely something that was a focus driver. So his stuff, you see it work because he's kind of foggy when he starts them in the morning, and Wednesday's the same thing. It's the Wednesday wake and bake, so you literally see him go from like, that pre-cup of coffee to we're going. We're moving. We got the trajectories, checking chats. It's a good time.
It's funny because I'm starting to get there. I've had my energy drink. I'm getting close. Like I'm still waking up too, man.
Right. Right.
I completely understand that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then Sundays he does pre-rolls. That's what it's called. It's like 2 hours at the end of the week where we're all just kind of hanging out in the chat and talking and they're just good fun. His channel is the one I participate in the most that I'm not like on.
Well, he just got another subscriber.
Hell yeah, Tony, got you, brother.
Tony, nice to meet you, man. You're working with good people here. So. Very cool, man. So one of the other questions I had for this, as a kid, I would look at stuff like this and I would dream of doing stuff like this, right? I would have loved to do stuff like this, but back then, first of all, it was just really hard to find stuff like this. It was hard to get into a hobby like this without knowing anybody, knowing anything.
Yep.
So thankfully the internet can help with that, right?
True.
But my question would be for that younger person, guy or girl, that wants to get into this. What's the most economical way they could start? What's the easiest stuff they could buy? How cheaply can somebody get into this hobby and see if they really like it? See if it hooks them too, without having to, go all out and just buy a bunch of stuff.
Right, buy a shelf of paints.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
What's the easiest way to try it?
My best advice to somebody wanting to get into this hobby to see if they even like it would probably be to just get something cheap. Get a clearance toy. Go to Ross or Burlington or Tuesday Mornings or any of those places, Ollie's or whatever. And just get a $5 or $6 figure and order a set of acrylic paint pens on Amazon.
Okay.
And just see if you're into it. You're out less than $20.
So basically, take your figure you got from this store.
Yeah.
Take the paint pens and just kind of paint on them and, create your own.
Yeah. If you're thinking about like, what if I get this? Say it's one of these stores has GI Joes, which happens pretty regularly.
Right.
And you get one of those. Okay. Well, there's $6. Okay. And you order the paint pens on Amazon. That's maybe $15. So you're at $21. That's pretty good to try out a hobby.
Okay.
And then you how you want to paint it. You want black with red camo or something. You get the paint pens, you color in black, you go back, you put the red spots on him. How fun was that?
Right.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
If you did, try it again. Do something different.
Dude, I'm gonna go buy one. I'm gonna do this.
You should.
Can I borrow a paint pen? Do I have to wait for Amazon? You got something? Surely you got something.
I've got paint pens right down here. Yeah.
I'm gonna try one of these.
That would be my best advice. Or get Joe. You really want to go cheap? I mean, get a Hot Wheel and a Sharpie. I mean, you really want to see if it's something you're even interested in. $2 and you're on the path.
Hot Wheels and I mean that's how it is. That's if you want it bad enough, you can do it, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to learn, there's a place to start.
Sure.
And everybody starts somewhere,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Not everybody got the start I did with having a dad who was into it. I knew I liked it from an early age.
Right.
Most people don't have that. Most people don't have a dad that's doing something like that.
Can I say this too? Because I think this is important for anybody. I want to ask this question. You don't know what I'm going to ask you, but I think this is important for anybody trying to start any new hobby, right? How was your work in the beginning when you started versus how it is now? Was it as good back then?
God, no.
Say it again.
Not even close. Not even close.
Was it terrible? Are you embarrassed by some of that work?
How far are we going back? Going back to the first stuff I did when I was 8, it was pretty sloppy. If we're going back to when I first started doing custom figures as an adult, it was not nearly as good as it is now. I wouldn't say it was terrible, but it was a solid place to start.
Yeah. Well, so and the point I'm trying to make with that, I'm taking away from this and everything else, is that no matter what people try to do, whether you want to be a writer, a rapper, you want to do comedy, you want to DJ, you want to do figures, whatever, people are pretty bad at it when they start.
Yeah, and very few are naturals at anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all that to say, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to start, don't be afraid. You're likely not going to be great at it in the beginning, but if you keep at it, you keep going, look what you can accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's like anything in life, you're going to get what you get out. What you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So if you are constantly trying to better yourself, you're trying to improve, then you will. I think a lot of people in the toy community, and especially custom stuff, we get hung up on competition.
Isn't it crazy?
We get hung up on competition, and competition is a very good thing,
right?
Because if there's nobody to compete against, you're never gonna improve. You're gonna get stuck in the same old ways. You're gonna do the same old things. But if you've got somebody out there that's trying to push the envelope, what are you going to do? You're going to try to push the envelope. You're going to constantly work on, hone in your skills. You're going to constantly work and get better and drive for more. And I mean, I am definitely one of those people that think, a rising tide raises all ships. So if there's with Tony's Figs, I talk to him pretty regularly. He's a terrific customizer. And we're technically competition because we do the same thing, but there's no lost love. There's still camaraderie. Well, we both dig it. We fuel off of it.
And that's something else we've talked about that, somebody like Tony, I don't even know this guy, right? He's probably got this huge following, whatever. And that's great because that's going to help prove my point. Maybe he's not going to like me after this, but he will. But, somebody like Tony, like we talked about, has to respect what you've got going on. Tony doesn't see this. Tony sees what you possess.
Right.
He sees your passion for it. This is just a display of the passion for it. So if you're a guy like Tony and you can't respect this, are you really, part of the hobby like you say you are?
Yeah. Maybe you're in it for the wrong reason.
Because I respect anybody, that's got a room full of VHS tapes or a great record collection, or
but you know what it took to get it.
Or the same guy, the same guys that are going out there digging and hustling, just like I've had to do.
Sure.
So there is that competitive aspect, but you can't, if I don't respect the same thing that got me to where I am, then that goes against everything I've done.
Mm-hmm.
So,
agreed.
That's why it's cool to build these communities and approach it from that aspect. Competition, I say competition is great, right? The only kind of competition I don't like is when people are trying to, step on each other's heads to try to get ahead, to try to bring somebody down to get up, because that's not real competition.
Yeah, you're trying to eliminate the competition.
If I've got to break somebody's legs to beat them in a race, that's not a competition.
That only speaks to your character. It doesn't speak to theirs.
But if we're going head to head, we're both doing our best. We're both trying to create, something without hurting each other, without trying to hurt each other or sabotage each other. That's true competition. That's what I'm for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it sounds like what's going on in this community. I'm sure there's some other.
Oh, there's not that for sure, but.
And it's sad, but speaking on other things we've talked about, that's the same thing. In any community you get into, unfortunately, there's going to be negatives to it.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter, but the great part about that for me is I see different communities. I talk to different people, and I know it's not a community thing. It's a human thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's a human problem.
Mm-hmm.
So we all need to take a look at ourselves and maybe try to get better and see how we each individually give to these communities, right? How we contribute versus take away.
Yep.
Guys, thank you once again for checking out this episode. Lots of great stuff in it. If you want more, like, share, and subscribe, especially to this guy's channel and all the channels he talked about during the episode. Yeah. They're all down in the description. You can take your pick, get as much as you want. Check out my record shop down below. Of course, like, subscribe, and share to my channel if you like, and check out my other videos. Anything else before we go, Mikey?
Check out Figure It Out. Thursday nights, 9 o'clock. Follow my socials to know which channel it's on. We'll keep you posted, but that's all I got. Appreciate you watching.
Thanks again, guys. We'll catch you next time.